Toxic people aren't going away anytime soon. When you can really become that most powerful version of yourself, it really doesn't matter when they're around. That's really when you become free. They're like a gnat flying around. That's when life becomes different for you. So, how do you handle toxic people? Well, number one, you have to create boundaries, right? Step one, don't run. Step one, don't run. But number one is create boundaries, create super strict boundaries because they've been conditioning you from the beginning. So when they've been conditioning you from the beginning, you've got to start creating these super strict boundaries so that you can start to heal. Your brain is like foggy and it's been turned into some kind of mush sometimes. And in order for you to start to heal, you've got to start creating boundaries that are really, really strict because they're going to look for ways in. They're going to look for ways to have other avenues to get in. And so, I often say, have one form of communication, one form of input, and I always say, have it be a way that you can actually document a date and timestamp, a way that they can't manipulate. Text messages can be manipulated. Conversations that are, oral, like talking, they can't be documented. So email is a perfect way to be documented because it really can't be manipulated the same way that text messages can be manipulated. So one way of handling a toxic person is to create boundaries, create super strict boundaries. All right. So that's number one. Number two is to pick your battles. They give you all kinds of battles, all kinds of battles. And you want to engage in every single one of those battles. Don't get involved in every single one. You want to end up defending yourself. You do want to defend yourself. Don't try to defend yourself. When you defend yourself, you actually end up giving them that power. When you do that, you're basically saying there's an issue. So don't do that. Pick your battles. You don't have to engage in every single one that they throw out there for you, right? Sometimes there are battles that you want to engage in, sometimes there are not. And that actually brings me to number three, as far as a way to handle a toxic person. And that is, don't take the bait. You don't have to take every single piece of bait that they throw out there either, because they will try to engage and get you to take bait. And part of the reason they do that, not just for narcissistic supply, which they do that too, because narcissists enjoy the process of triggering you. They enjoy the process of getting under your skin. They enjoy the process of watching you become emotional. They enjoy the process of manipulating you. They, of course, get off on that. They get a high from that. They get narcissistic supply from that. It's a form of enjoyment for them. Regular reasonable people aren't motivated by that, but narcissists are. Toxic people are. So you don't want to engage in it for that reason, but they also use your reaction against you. They go, look, there's the crazy one. There's the emotional one. While they stand over there calm and collected. And so there you are, and you go, wait a minute, you're the one who was like that. I was only reacting to you. You were the one who was like that in the first place. You were the one who started this thing. And they go, oh no, we're in this. And you're like, no, I was only being this way because you were this way. And then you're in it. Then you're there. No, you cannot take that bait. You can't go down that path. I know you want to, but you don't have to do that. Don't take that bait. And, that's how you become ready to slay. And if you are so ready to slay, I want you to put that in the comments right now. Ready to slay. Ready to slay. Put that in the comments right now, because that's how you handle toxic people. Ready to slay right now. And that's, what I talk about with slay: strategy, leverage, anticipate what they're going to do, be 2 steps ahead of them, and focus on you, your position, your case. Anticipate what they're going to do and be 2 steps ahead of them. Anticipate that they're going to try to give you bait, and don't take it. So that's number 3 way to handle a toxic person. Number 4, you got to have an agenda or a plan. That's one of the ways that you're going to handle a toxic person. You got to have an agenda or a plan. And one of the ways that you can do that is, when you're going to have to go and talk to them, that they're going to want to bait you. That you're going to get emotional. That it's going to be hard for you. That your heart's going to start pounding. That it's going to take your breath away. That it's triggering for you. Have an agenda or a plan when you go to speak to them, and maybe even a time limit. That way, when it goes beyond the scope of what you're going to be talking about, or it reaches that time limit, you can just say, hey, oh no, we're sticking to this topic. Or if it reaches the time limit, you can just say, hey, I've got another engagement. I got to go. We're happy to pick this up another time. All right. I'm looking forward to talking to you the next time. Fine. But you're in and out, and it allows you to start feeling like you are taking control of the situation. Okay. So that's the next one. Have an agenda or a plan. And if you are getting ready to negotiate with a toxic person, you're getting ready to negotiate with anybody, even if it's not a toxic person, make sure to grab my free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, crushmydeal.com. Go to crushmydeal.com, get it. It's a free ebook, 15 pages. Crushmydeal.com. Go grab it right now. You must have this. I've had people win their entire deals on this thing. So grab it. It's totally free. Crushmydeal.com. Get it right now. The number 5 way to handle a toxic person is what I call fluff or favor, vomit later. You're going to fluff up their ego, like you're fluffing up a pillow. You give them a little something that they want, so that you get a little something that you want in return. Fluff up their ego, give them a little something that they want, so you get a little something that you want in return. And how that looks is, can you handle resolving the QuickBooks this month? You are so good at it. You're so smart. It'll be done so much more efficiently if you do it than if I do it. I'm terrible at it. Don't say anything good about yourself, because they don't want to hear that. So you get something done that you want done. And I say fluff or favor, vomit later, because, if you need to feel like you need to go vomit later, go do that. But then you got something done that you wanted done, and they got what they wanted, which is their ego got fluffed up. So fluff or favor, vomit later. That's number 5 way to handle a toxic person. Okay, so let's talk covert narcissists. What's the difference between them and a regular narcissist? So they are every bit 100% narcissists. They are the same fragile little ego inside, the same super insecure person that's deep inside there. But they look a little bit different because they're not in your face the way regular overt narcissists are. They come across as a little bit more passive, a little bit more quiet, so that on the surface, you don't actually even notice that they're narcissists at all in the beginning. As a typical narcissist, you think is a person who is telling everybody how great they are all the time. The covert narcissist does not do that. However, because they don't do that, and because you can't see it right off the bat on the surface, they're actually way more insidious and way more toxic than overt narcissists are. Okay, so another trait of a covert narcissist is that they come across as shy and actually even reserved. They actually probably are prone to bouts of depression. They may even tell you that they have bouts of depression. So, on the surface, they're going to seem to be like maybe they're just nice people. Maybe they might just be more fragile, something like that, because being a victim is very much part of the covert narcissist plan to get people into their lair. Okay, the third thing that you'll see with covert narcissists is they seem to be helpful in the beginning. So they'll actually lure you in with things that they know that you want so that they can appear to be super helpful, but they really just want to use you. So as once you're into their lair, then they start with the passive aggressive. They start to drip on you like the Chinese water torture. I'm half Chinese, I could say that, on your forehead kind of a thing. Like, and you start to think, am I crazy? Because the rest of the world sees this person as being so nice, but you kind of know that something is not right. They're doing all these little things behind your back, and they're very, very good at disguising it in such a way that if you tell somebody about it, the person's going to go, well, that doesn't sound so bad. But that it's like this drip, drip, drip thing that they're doing to try to make you crazy. They lure you in with, I'm going to help you with this. And then they start with passive aggressive little things to try to make you crazy. Okay, and the next trait of a covert narcissist is that they often like to play the victim, or maybe they're very sickly, or they often have health issues or something like that, because they constantly need to be the center of attention. So they come up with ways that they can constantly be the center of attention. And then the last thing is that they will not have any sense of empathy for another person. They can feign empathy, but and they know when they have to apologize, just to apologize for the surface, but they really don't actually have any empathy for the other person, because they actually are narcissists, and narcissists don't feel anything for anybody but themselves. If this is sounding all too familiar, give me a for sure in the comments. Okay, so this is all well and good, but if you have a covert narcissist in your life, what can you do about it? So the first thing that you can do about it is not to react, especially if you know that this covert narcissist is trying to get under your skin or trying to manipulate you in some way, or they're saying something to try to get a rise out of you. You just say, good for you, or that's great. Don't react, because that's exactly what they want you to do. The second thing that you could do is, if the timing seems right, call them out on their behavior, but do it in a very subtle way. You sort of play their game. Oh, I'm surprised to see that you're here today. You said you were sick yesterday. Something like that. But you say it without emotion. You don't say it with smugness. You just say it so that they subtly know that you're calling them out on their behavior, but you are not bothered by it. They're not getting a rise out of you. You're just noticing it. So the third thing that you can do is do not, and I repeat, do not let them know that they are getting to you. You do not show any emotion. You do not show that anything that they're doing has manipulated you in any way, because that is exactly what they want. And if they get that, then they're going to do more of it. So this is a subtle way to start shutting down this behavior. It's kind of like a behavior modification program for narcissists. You don't give them what they want. So don't react, because if you do, then that's what they want. Okay, the fourth thing that you can do is kind of similar to the others, but this is specific to gaslighting, because this is something that narcissists will do often, and especially covert narcissists too. They're going to try to gaslight you. So they try to make you think that you're crazy. So
years ago, there was a movie, I think it was actually called Gaslight or something. And this husband was actually abusing the wife through trying to make her seem like she was crazy. And he would blow out these gas lights. And then she would say, wasn't that just lit? And he would say, no, it wasn't. And that's what gaslighting is. It's just like the subtle little thing to try to make you think that you're crazy. So basically, it's like, we talked about that. You said that it was okay. Oh, we had a conversation. I'm sorry, there was a misunderstanding on your part, and you know that there was no misunderstanding, or maybe that there was no conversation ever at all. So don't let them gaslight you that way. Just say, no, there was never that conversation. No, we didn't have that conversation. Or no, there was no misunderstanding. This is what we talked about. Something like that. Remain firm. Don't allow them to manipulate you into thinking that you're crazy. Okay, number 5 is keep your barriers really strong. One of the things that narcissists do, because they've got this mantra that I will not be ignored, is they don't respect boundaries. So they'll come right into your room, they'll read your mail, they will go places that they're not supposed to be or whatever, and they act like, oh, here I am bringing you something nice, I'm doing something nice for you. So I'm not respecting your boundaries, but you're going to forgive me because I'm being nice about it, something like that. Don't allow them to not respect your boundaries. Have super strong barriers, super strong barriers. That's the only way you're going to be able to manage their behavior and also keep your own sanity. And the other thing that you can do is to slowly close down the barriers of communication. And what I mean by this is, if you have a narcissist in your life, or a covert narcissist, if the most thing that you can do for yourself is get them out of your life. Okay. And I've recently had to do that with people in my business arena. And because I've had some covert narcissists in my life in the business arena, and I've had to deal with that, and it was extremely difficult, and it's painful because it's sort of a betrayal in a lot of ways, right? But you just have to understand and have compassion for the fact that they're broken people, and that they have deep insecurities and problems, but that doesn't mean they have to be in your space. So if I were you, I would try to slowly shut down those barriers of communication and slowly start to wean them out of your space if you can. So let's get into the 5 rules for surviving relationships with narcissists. Number 1, if you are still in this relationship and you are day to day going toe to toe with this person, whether it's a family member, it is somebody that you work with, somebody that you have to deal with on a regular basis, do not try to get into the mud with them, because that is what gets them going. So never explain, justify, or defend yourself, because that is what they want to do. They want to trigger you, they want to suck you in, they want to get going with you. They don't want to have a regular conversation with you. They enjoy the process of watching you squirm and manipulate you and have this thing where they're sort of leading you around, and it's a sickness with them. You can't just have this normal conversation. It's this thing that you get into. You end up trying to explain yourself constantly, or justify or defend yourself constantly. And so you almost have to pretend like you're reporting the news, or become an observer of a conversation. I can see that you're upset. I see that you are having a moment, and we can come back to this when you are less upset, or something like that, where you are almost completely taking yourself out of the conversation. And they want to constantly attack you, and they know what triggers you, especially if you've been in a relationship with them for a period of time, a long period of time. They're going to say the things that they know will trigger you. You're horrible with money.
You're a terrible parent. No one likes you. Your family hates you. They'll say the things that they know are going to get you sucked into that thing with them, and you're going to want to defend yourself, and don't take that bait, because then you're going to get sucked into it. So if you really want to survive your relationship with a narcissist, just say, I know that's how you feel. I understand that that's your position. Don't explain, don't justify. And I do have a whole video, by the way, on 5 kick-ass comebacks to narcissist texts. So if you're in a text conversation with them, definitely check out that video as well. The next one is never take anything personally. Again, you're surviving a relationship with a narcissist. This is not an easy situation. So again, difficult, but understand that these people have a disorder. There's something going on with their brain, and you can't take it personally what's going on there. So there's a great book out there. I've recommended it before. We'll put a link to it below in the description. Check it out. It's called The 4 Agreements. It's 4 agreements that you make with yourself. But one of the agreements is that you never take anything personally, because the way people treat other people is always a direct reflection of the way they feel about themselves. And so you just can't take it personally. Hurt people, right? I always think of Wonder Woman with the bullets like coming off of the wrist there. Just, oh, okay, I understand. You just can't take it personally, the way that they are acting. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is develop a support system. So important to develop that super strong support system, because you're really going to need it, especially, going forward. Outside friends. I mean, one of the things that narcissists do, especially if in a personal relationship with a narcissist, this person is your spouse, or the most important person in your life, they try to isolate you. They try to say, oh, I'm the only one who loves you, or the things like that, or whatever. Start really developing more of a support system outside of that person. Have friends, or even psychologists, therapists, whoever it is that you can go to, so that you can start developing a support system outside of that narcissist. I do have a video called Self-Care to Cope with Narcissists. And I even have a whole playlist here on all kinds of videos on self-care to cope with narcissists. Definitely check out the videos in that playlist, and check out my video on that as well. Just put "I can do this" in the comments, because you can. Just write "I can do this." Start that mantra. Start saying that to yourself, because you definitely can do this as well. I do have a partnership with BetterHelp.com if you need online therapy. We do receive commissions because we do have a partnership with them. It doesn't cost you any extra if you decide to use their help. I just only recommend services that we trust. I want you to have the support that you need. Please don't go without the support that you need. I want to just offer that to you if you need that. Okay. So I can do this. Put that in the comments. I want you to just say, I can do this. All right. Next, start doing things that make your soul happy every day. Just a little something that makes your soul happy every day. Something. If it's like a 2-minute thing that makes your soul happy every day, whatever that is. I mean, put on a song and dance to it, or sing out loud in the shower, or call somebody who makes you happy, or cook something, or whatever it is. But just find something every day that just brings you joy, and do that. Find a few minutes every day to do something that brings you joy in your heart, whatever that is. People who have been surviving relationship with narcissists, you'll go the entire day and not have done one single thing that brings you joy. And if you can just carve out a few minutes a day for yourself to do something that brings you joy, that makes your soul happy, it will make the hugest difference in your life. I'm telling you, do something every day that brings you joy and makes you happy. Anything. And number 5, super important, start planning your escape, even if it's going to be 10 years from now or whatever it is. I just interviewed somebody for a podcast, which I'm going to be airing here soon. He talked about how, he knew it was going to be 10 years from then, but he had read the book by Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning, and how, he knew, be years from then or whatever, but he knew that it was going to be at some point, and he had made a decision that, he could endure because at some point there was going to be an end.
Now, if you are co-parenting with a narcissist and you really want to protect your kids from that toxic personality, there are a few things that you can do. But before I get into that, let me just give you a few ideas of the kinds of things that you're going to be in for if you are co-parenting with that narcissist. Number 1 is parental alienation. Most people who are alienators are also narcissists. And I have an entire video on narcissistic parental alienation, and I will drop a link to that below. You're definitely going to want to check that out. But, they engage in all kinds of things that look like parental alienation, which is a campaign of denigration against you, trying to turn the kids against you so that the kids think that you're the most disgusting thing that ever walked the planet, even if you had a wonderful relationship with them before, and they start dripping on the kids in a way that starts turning the kids against you. It is very serious and very toxic. So definitely check out my video on parental alienation, narcissistic parental alienation, if you haven't already seen it. In addition to parental alienation and the campaign of denigration, they'll also just personally attack you, not necessarily just to the kids, but also just to you. So they will go on these personal attacks in messages, in person, to third parties, to whoever their lawyer is, in whatever way that they possibly can. They will go on this campaign of personal attack against you. And, not to mention twisting everything that you say, gaslighting, manipulating you, and on and on and on. But the third thing that they're going to try to do is legal attacks on you. So they will use the system as their sword. They hide behind that. They don't want to actually have a conversation with you unless they think they're going to be able to control it. So if they, but they will file like 15,000 motions and then obstruct you in every possible way from getting any information and make you run up fees and spend lots of money. And then they'll, nicely come to you and say, oh, let's just go have a conversation at Starbucks or whatever, something like that. But they will use that legal system as their sword as a means to try to control you. If this is all sounding too familiar so far, give me a definitely in the comments. Okay, so what can you do to protect your children from this toxic personality? Let me just say at the outset that there's no easy answer here. There's no magic wand. There's no way to turn that narcissist into a normal person. They have a personality disorder. There's something wrong inside their head. And, nothing that you're going to be able to do is going to be able to change that about them. And the worst thing about narcissists is that they don't think there's anything wrong with them. So they'll never go and get help. So the only thing that you can do is control yourself and your behavior. Okay. So let's just say that at the outset. But there are a few things that you can do to minimize the issues and to protect your children. So number 1 is a custody evaluation. If you decide to get a custody evaluation, you have to file a motion for it unless the other side agrees to doing it. Sometimes they're so crazy that they want the custody evaluation to try to show the world how terrible you are, which is, kind of their way of projecting their own behavior onto the other person. But it is only in the context of a custody evaluation that you'll very easily be able to get psychological evaluations done. If you just ask for a psychological evaluation without bringing the children into it, without having a best interest reason for it, you probably won't get it. But if you say that it's for the best interest of the children, that you are concerned for the children and their welfare when they're with this person, and you put it at issue, then the court may, more than likely will agree to order this custody evaluation. They sometimes don't, even if they think they should, because sometimes they just feel that neither side can really afford it. They do get a little bit costly. It's certainly less costly than bringing 50 witnesses into the courtroom, because the custody evaluator, who is a trained psychologist, does all of that legwork at a much lower rate. So, you do get that. And they interview both of you. They interview the children. They get to come to your home. They get to interview anybody that's related to the children. They get to observe stuff. They do all kinds of testing, not just psychological testing, but they can do drug testing. They can do uh, testing on, somebody's propensity to be a good parent. There's all sorts of things that they can do. So it's something to consider. Number 2 is to stay unemotional. And those of you who are my regular listeners and viewers know that I say this all the time. And yet it is the hardest thing to do, because they definitely know how to push your buttons. They definitely know how to get under your skin, and they will definitely try. So, but they will taunt you, goad you, do whatever they can to get you to respond and get down on their level, and hopefully get you unglued so that they can use that against you. So stay as unemotional as possible. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is, if you really do believe that you or your children are in danger, don't wait to call your lawyer. Please call the police. There are other people that can help you as well. Sometimes there's shelters for abused women, or shelter even for men who are abused. Don't just sit there like a sitting duck. Please call the police. And once you do call the police and you do have a record of threats and things like that, you can potentially try to go get an injunction, also sometimes called a restraining order. It's a little bit difficult for me to quantify when you can get a restraining order or when you can't. The one thing I will say, though, is that if you decide to try that path, to hire somebody and a lawyer who really understands the system and understands the statute, because you want to make sure that it sticks if you do get it. The worst thing in the world is to try to go get one and then have it be dismissed, because then the other person feels empowered. So you're going to want to make sure that you're really you've got enough. Unfortunately, even if you feel in fear and you don't really have any way to prove why you're in fear, you probably won't get one. But if you are in real danger of physical abuse or stalking, something like that, please call the police. Number 4, what you can do is use a co-parenting app that help you minimize the interaction between the two of you, because sometimes just the escalation of interaction between the two of you becomes a danger to your children. So if you want to protect your children, then minimizing the fighting and the back and forth and all the toxicity and poison that's going on between the two of you will definitely help to protect your children. So more than likely you'll have to get a court order. More than likely the other person won't agree to it. Even if they do agree to it, have that agreement or stipulation turned into a court order so that the other person is ordered to use it, because if they're a narcissist, they're not going to want to use it. Even if they're court ordered to use it, they'll still try to figure out ways around it. Well, we're here right now, let's just talk. Or, oh, it's too hard to use the app, I'm just texting you. They'll still try to find ways around it, but then at least it's a violation of a court order. Okay, my next suggestion is non-disparagement clauses, and those can be written right into a parenting plan, where it says, neither parent is allowed to talk badly about the other parent to the children. Now, I'm going to tell you that most of the time I find these kinds of clauses to be aspirational rather than actually useful, because it's really hard for a court to enforce them. Even if you have proof, even if you have a text message from the parent to the child that says, mommy is a loser or daddy is a drunk, even then the judge is probably just going to go, don't do it again. I mean, because it's really hard to enforce that kind of an agreement. So my suggestion to you is to have some kind of extra thing written into the agreement that helps you enforce it. Like, if the person violates it, then the person who violated that clause loses the ability to have ultimate decision making authority on one particular area or another, like medical or educational or something like that. Oh, and the person who violates it has to pay both sides fees or something like that. Give the judge some kind of teeth to be able to enforce that court order. Number 6 is document, document, document. You all know, who are my regular listeners, you better document every single thing. Have the notes section open to your phone or use an app or whatever you need to do. I've won entire court cases on documentation. So, person's late or they didn't show up to take the kids or whatever, so that down the road you can potentially modify that parenting plan so that you get more time sharing than the other person does. And the last one is to get therapy for your child. You might have to get a court order for this. You might have to go to the judge and say, my child needs therapy, because if the other person doesn't agree to it, which if they're a narcissist, they probably won't, because they probably don't believe in therapy and they're afraid of what therapists might uncover or say about them. Um, or they just won't agree to it because that's what you want and they just don't want to give you what you want. So you might have to go and ask the court to order that it's okay, but give your children an outlet, give them a place that's protected for them to talk about what's going on and how they're feeling about the entire situation. So some states do actually have statutes that say that only one parent's permission is needed for therapy. So you'll have to check with your lawyer on what is needed for ordering a child to therapy in your particular state. All right, let's talk about how to flip the script on narcissists. They're always trying to gaslight you. How do you gaslight them? All right, so first of all, what is gaslighting? Gaslighting is a term that psychologists use. It is a specific type of manipulation where the manipulator is trying to get someone to think, or maybe it's even a group of people, to think that they're crazy. Basically, they're trying to get them to question their own reality, question their own mind, their own memory, their own perception. I have been the recipient of this. I've dealt with them. I've been the victim of covert narcissists myself, not as a husband, fortunately, thank God, but business relationships, and we've had a family member, and it's awful. It is a really, really horrible, horrific, horrible, traumatic experience. It is terrible. It comes from the new movie Gaslight. I think it was also a play where in that particular movie, the husband was trying to make the wife think that she was crazy, and he was blowing out the gas lights, and she was like, oh, wasn't that just lit? And he would say, no, it wasn't. And that's where it comes from. So, and if you want to know more about the 8 key narcissistic gaslighting phrases that narcissists use, you can definitely check out my video on that topic. So what I'm going to do here, though, is give you some ways to not technically have you make narcissists think that they're crazy, or actually manipulate them in such a way where you're, having them question their own mind or whatever. But I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator, where you're kind of stopping them in their tracks, where you are, shutting them down. It's a way for you to protect yourself and create your own boundaries and It helps you in the negotiation process for sure. And if you are so ready to shut them down, give me a shut them down in the comments right now. All right. So, one of the things that you're going to do this is especially really effective when you start to see them getting emotional. And you will see this happening, especially when negotiations start to get underway and when the relationship starts to break down, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship, and you are starting to go into that discard phase, that last kind of phase of a narcissistic relationship. That's when, it starts to be war. That's when you're either for them or against them. With a narcissist, it's always a black and white kind of a situation. And if you're against them, then you become public enemy number one for sure. So they will start to get very, very emotional. A lot of times that narcissistic injury gets triggered, that narcissistic rage comes flying out, and they can get very emotional. Sometimes they get emotional because they're also trying to trigger you. By the way, they do it purposely just to get a rise out of you because they want to trigger you. So sometimes they will say things because they know that there are certain areas that they can push on. For example, like if you've always tried to be a really good parent, a really good mom, a really good dad, they'll say, oh, you're a really neglectful parent. Or if they know that you've done a very good job in business and being meticulous with money is really important, they'll say, oh, you're a spendthrift or you're terrible with money. They'll say things that they know are not true so that you'll go, oh, how can you say this? So be very careful about, taking that kind of bait, by the way. But so one of the things you can do when you see them getting emotional, or you find yourself getting emotional, is you can respond with things like, I understand that is how you're seeing it. So you didn't disagree with them. You just say, I understand that is how you're seeing it. So, that is just an observation that you're making. All right. So that's one of the ways. The next thing that you can do is to get them to keep talking. This is a great way of also getting them to give you more rope to hang themselves. They are great at that. A lot of times people don't want to give narcissists more rope. Oh, don't let them get away with anything. Don't give them more. But if you give them more rope, most of the time they will hang themselves. So let them keep talking. Give them more rope. Say things to them like, tell me more about that. Why are you thinking that? It will fluster them, and they will start to realize sometimes how they are talking in circles and how maybe that what they're saying doesn't necessarily make sense. And what they are saying is kind of maybe not necessarily not in their best interests. And so it can sometimes be a good thing. And especially if you can get them to do it in writing, even better, because, all writing becomes a potential trial exhibit. Good advice for you too to remember. Okay, so that's the second thing. And the next one, the last one is actually my favorite one because it is a great way to twist things around. And this is always ethically manipulating the manipulator. They are very, very good at manipulating. And this is just you ethically manipulating the manipulator. And this one is, I agree with you. So if they say things like, you are horrible with money or whatever, you can say something like, I agree with you that is your opinion. I agree with you that we are not going to come to a conclusion on this today. I agree with you that we are probably never going to see eye to eye on this. Something like that. So that you're not agreeing on anything here. You're just saying, I agree with you. And then the rest of your statement is not agreeing to anything that they're saying. But the beginning of what you're saying is, I agree with you. It really kind of confuses them because you're saying, I agree with you, but then the rest of what you're saying is actually not saying you agree with agree with anything. And it can be very confusing for them because they heard something, but then what is it that you actually said? So it is a really great way of gaslighting the narcissist, gaslighting the gaslighter. Okay, so we're going to go through the top 5 mistakes that people make when dealing with narcissists. And I've seen these when people are negotiating with narcissists and also in dealing with them. And I've also made them myself in dealing with the narcissists that I've had to deal with. I had to deal with a couple of covert narcissists in my personal life as well, one in a business setting and one in a family setting. The one I'm saving for last is the reason why I really wanted to make this video. Okay, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so number 1 is do not make the mistake of falling into the trap of their future faking. They will future fake you. They will make you think that they've changed. What happens is you will leave, you will maybe come back, you will think that they have changed. They have not changed. Okay. Do not think that they have changed. Do not fall for that. Do not come into thinking that they may have changed. I have interviewed people on this. I have talked to people on this. You can listen to my interviews on this. You can talk to people on this. Don't think that they have changed. They have not changed. Unfortunately, they just don't. So don't fall for that. That's one of the top 5 mistakes that we make, is falling for the future fake, thinking they may have changed when they have not. Don't fall for it. You know what future faking is, right? It's like things are going to be better now, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like a love bomb, but it's already happened. Like you're already in the relationship. And when you're trying to hold them accountable for something and them saying, oh, things are going to be different now thing, don't look in the past, look to the future. Don't think that they're going to change. They won't. It's all a manipulation. Okay. Number 2 is don't think that you're going to get closure from them. You're not going to. Okay, just forget about it. I thought that I was going to be able to get closure in my relationship with the business narcissist, and you can't. I thought that I was going to be able to have a nice amicable relationship going forward. You can't. And I've seen people fall prey to this many times as well. And you're just not going to be able to do that. As much as you try to wrap things up in a nice little bow and move forward nicely, they're just not capable. They're just too wounded. And so as much as you think that you're going to try to get that closure, you're going to have to get your own closure. Just knowing that you can move forward, knowing that you are healed, knowing that you are going to be a better person from everything that you're learning from this situation, that's the closure that you're getting. The next big mistake that we make in dealing with narcissists is hoping for acknowledgement from them and thinking that you're going to maybe get acknowledgement for anything that you contributed to the relationship, because you're not going to get it. You're not going to get acknowledgement from them. They're not going to say, oh, yeah, you're right, you did a good job, or oh, yeah, you're right, you contributed to my career, or yeah, you helped me in that situation, or you made my life better in this way. You're not going to get that. They're not going to make it seem like, sure, you get to take credit for anything. In fact, if anything, they're going to make it look like you're the problem. You know, I have a whole video on that, 5 ways that they actually try to make you look like the problem. And you can check out my video on that. So they're definitely not going to give you credit for anything. And so we make this mistake of thinking, try to give me credit for this, try to acknowledge me. And if I could just talk to you one more time, if I could just get you to see, stop
banging your head against that wall. Banging your head against a brick wall would actually be more satisfying. So that's the next big, huge mistake. And if you agree with me so far, give me a totally in the comments. All right. And the next one is expecting any kind of loyalty whatsoever. You're not going to get any kind of loyalty. The only loyalty that they have is to the highest bidder for their supply. You know that they need an endless amount of narcissistic supply. You know that they're going to go to wherever the best form of supply is that they can get. And so that's where they're going to go. I mean, they're going to go to wherever they can get it. They're like vultures. So if down the road there is a better form of it, that's where they're heading. I mean, they're not going to have loyalty toward you if there's a better form of supply somewhere else. So you can't take that personally, because it really doesn't have anything to do with you. It only has to do with them. Okay, you ready for the last one? This is really the reason why I wanted to do this video. I was actually going to maybe just do the video on just this topic. I was actually thinking about maybe just doing it on the one big mistake that we make with narcissists. But then I thought, well, there's so many. So I decided I didn't mention the other ones. But this is really one that I see so often in negotiating that I thought I have to mention this one. Okay. And that is thinking any sort of like this gratuitous giving is going to garner some sort of favor down the road. It doesn't. Okay. So if you think that you're negotiating with them in some way and that giving them something on the front end is going to get you something on the back end, you're like totally kidding yourself, because it's not. They're just going to take it and like, oh, okay, great. And your point is what? It's like, it's done. They have it and that's it. And now they want more. So what I see a lot of times is people will say, well, I'm going to show them how nice I'm being, because I'll show them I don't want any part of their retirement, or I'll show them that I won't touch this, or I won't ask them for support, or whatever, giving up leverage. And then they just take that. And then they realize down halfway into the case that they're like, it didn't help at all. The narcissist is being horrible and horrendous anyway. And now they've given up that leverage. Now they wish they hadn't been that way. Or they didn't hire the good lawyer, or they didn't get a custody agreement done at the beginning like their lawyer told them to, or whatever it was that they didn't do, because they thought that this gratuitous giving will garner some sort of favor for them down the road. It doesn't. It's a big lie. It's a big fat waste of time. They will not honor agreements. They'll just take, and they will not see that and acknowledge that. And you're just going to end up feeling used and abused. Let me just tell you, if they were a lying, denying, horrible spouse, they're not going to be better during the divorce. And by the way, this goes for if you're breaking up in a business relationship or any kind of a relationship. This is a massive mistake that I see with people, that somehow you think that if you show them how nice you are, that they're going to see that and that you'll be rewarded for that. You won't. Don't fall into that trap. You got to take care of yourself. You got to do what you have to do to end up at fair. And don't feel guilty for that. Do what you have to do to take care of yourself. Do what you have to do to take care of your family if you have kids. So you're getting ready to go into a negotiation. You're wondering, what should you say? What should you not say? What should you definitely stay away from? And believe me, there are certain phrases that you definitely do not want to say. So number one is, I'm giving this an hour.
or I'm giving this 30 minutes and then I'm out of here. So you don't want to start off with like you're giving us some time frame that puts everybody on edge right away. And now everybody thinks they need to hurry up or whatever. That's definitely a narcissist move, by the way. I've seen narcissists do that a lot, where they come in and they start throwing around like, I'm only staying this long, or I'm only staying that long, and that's it. And then I'm out of here. Because they want everybody to be on edge right away. They want everybody to be like scurrying and scrambling and trying to hurry up to try to get things done. And they want to try to control the process. They want people to be afraid, nervous about what's going to happen or whatever. So it is definitely not something that's highly recommended, especially when you want to resolve your issues. And especially if you are dealing with a narcissist, because that's not going to help them. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help them want to work with you. Okay, so don't start off with, I'm only staying for X amount of time. That will definitely put somebody on edge. So, the purpose of these phrases and this video today is to let you know what kinds of things you want to stay away from saying, because you want to try to actually get something done. If you actually want to get somewhere with your negotiation, then you want to try to avoid using these phrases. Okay? So another one that you definitely want to stay away from is something like, this is my final offer. Take it or leave it. This is it. Especially if you're early on in the process. Now, if you're down the road, y'all have been sitting there for hours and hours and hours, and you've already been back and forth. You already know what your choke point is. You've done your risk assessment. By the way, if you want to know all the things that I'm talking about, grab my free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet at winmynegotiation.com. That will help you do all of these things. But you've already figured out what your best case scenario is, what your worst case scenario is, what your choke point is, what your walk away point is, those are the same. And you've gone, okay, now this is my final offer, fine. But you don't walk in and start off at the beginning going, this is the deal, take it or leave it. If you don't take it, I'm out of here. Because that's not going to, nobody's taking that. I mean, even if it's a deal that you want, just imagine that it's presented to you in that way. You're going to go, oh, no, because, you're kind of acting like a jackass, right? So you don't want to do that. So if you want something to actually be done, you actually want something to be considered, where you can actually maybe get some, ground in this thing and gain something out of it, then you don't start off with, here's the deal, take it or leave it, right? And if you are so ready to get this done, give me a get this done in the comments below. Okay, so the next word that you never want to say straight up in a negotiation is no, because that's not going to help either. When you're dealing with a narcissist, especially, they hate the word no. And by the way, you should also check out my video on words narcissists hate. And definitely no is one of them, even if it is a no. I mean, you might want to just say, I'll consider it. What's your reasoning for this offer? It's always good to know what their reasoning is behind the offer. Why is it that they're offering this? Get them to talk a little bit, because one of the things that is really important to know is that even if you don't settle in mediation or in the negotiation or in arbitration or whatever it is that you're in that particular conversation and you don't have a resolution, it's a great way to get information. It's a great information gathering time. So get them to tell you more about it. Why is it that you think that this is a good deal? Why is it that you think that I should take this? What supporting documentation do you have? What arguments are you going to be using down the road if we don't settle this now? Why do you think that it would be a good deal for me? And why is it a good deal for you? Why is it that you want this deal? Ask more questions rather than just say no. straight up off the bat. Because if you just say no, you're just going to piss them off, you're going to annoy them, they're going to get up, they're going to walk away, and then you've lost the opportunity, even if your answer is straight up no, to get more information and gather more documentation that you could potentially use. And by the way, if they start giving you all of their arguments and all of their documentation, then the next time you go to sit down for a conversation, you know exactly how to refute that. You know exactly what research you need to do so that you can be prepared for whatever the next meeting is, if there is going to be one. So don't just say no straight up off the bat, for a number of reasons. One being that you're not going to get anywhere with that. And second, you're actually losing an opportunity for yourself to gain more information. The next one is never use any kind of a devaluation or any kind of a slur, or even using any kind of like tone where you're like, yeah, I know that this is what you want, but you're not getting it, or that's ridiculous and that's never going to happen. That's actually another good phrase never to use, which is that's never going to happen, because that's, again, you don't want to put people in a situation where they're immediately put off, where they immediately are just like, why am I having this conversation? Let me just get up. Let me just leave right now. You want to hold them there. You want them to have a conversation with you. And so the longer that you can be in conversation with each other, the more rapport that you can build. And so in building a rapport, you definitely don't want to be slurring the people. Certainly don't use any kind of racial slurs, any kind of gender slurs, anything against religion, or anything about the person as a human being. You really never want to get personal when it comes to negotiating. You don't want to say, something about, like your mom is an alcoholic, or something like, Eddie Murphy with the ice cream man thing. You don't want to say things like that, right? Clearly that's way off topic, and way so far afield, and will just inflame the situation and cause the person to go, well, I'm never having any kind of conversation with you. And maybe you're fine with that. Obviously you want to know before you go into the room where your parameters are and what your walk away point is. But if you're in conversation with this person, then that means that you do want something from them. And you have to remember that all people want to feel seen, heard, and valued. All people want to know that they matter in some way. And that's why my book is called Negotiate Like You Matter. And the acronym, Matter, is actually the acronym for how to negotiate, because all people want to feel that they matter. Now, obviously, if you're dealing with a narcissist, it's like heightened by a gazillion, because they have to be the focal point, and they really want to know that they matter. But you always need to make sure that you're providing value for value. Nobody's going to settle for their worst day. Remember, your best day is probably the other side's worst day, and nobody's going to have a conversation when it means that they're settling for their worst possible scenario. So, deciding ahead of time what it is that you're going to give up will really be helpful. Now, when you're dealing with a narcissist, you might kind of like use a decoy and act like the thing that you're giving up is the thing you really wanted, when it's really something you were going to be willing to give up in the first place. You kind of have to ethically manipulate the manipulator a little bit. And if you want to know more about that, check out my video on manipulating the narcissist, because that's something you definitely have to do when you are dealing with a narcissist. The point of all of this is you don't want to use any kind of language that's going to cause the person to immediately go, that's it, I'm out of here. I'm not having this conversation, because you're putting them on edge right away.
Okay, so you're negotiating with a narcissist, and you're just, the games, they don't stop. They do not stop. It is like this game that you are stuck in, that It's like a freaking nightmare. Like, when can you get out of this thing, right? I mean, how do you get out of a narcissist game? How do you stay out of a narcissist game? Like, if you are feeling like you're being pulled in, you're being sucked in, you feel it like a tide that's sucking you in, and you want to stay out of it. I've been there. I felt like that sucking. I felt it. How do you stay out of that? I figured it out. I figured it out. I've had to deal with them, not just in negotiations, but in my personal life as well. And not just as the target, because I've had to deal with a couple of them where I've been targeted, a couple of covert narcissists, but also just like around me. Because don't you feel like that, like they're around you, like everywhere? I have felt it when they've started to draw me in. And now that I can spot them from a mile away, I know what the one trait is that keeps me myself to protect myself to stay out of their games. And by the way, if you want lots and lots of tips and tricks on how to stay powerful and stay strong in dealing with narcissists, feel free to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Okay, so you want to stay above the fray. You don't want to play into their triggers. Okay. Because they do want to trigger you. You know why? Because it gives them supply. They're like rats in a maze with the cheese. Like, there's that one thing. There's the only thing that they're going for at all times is that narcissistic supply. And yes, there's a hierarchy. Yes, there's the grade A, and then there's like, the coal level, and like, there's different levels of supply for them. Of course, there's like the better version, and then there's like the whatever. But they'll take anything. They're definitely vultures. They'll take any level of supply they can get. But you want to stay above the fray, right? You want to be like the untouchable supply, the one they're trying to get, but they can't quite get their hands on it. They want it, but you just keep slipping out of their hands. They can't quite get you. That's the supply that you want to be. They want you, but you're not touchable. You're not reachable. All right. So it's sort of like the level, where you're trying to get them to respect you. It's kind of like that. I have a video on the only way to get a narcissist to respect you, by the way. And you can definitely check that out too. It's sort of like that, but it's along the same lines. Like, you don't want to take their bait. That's definitely one of those traits. Because they will try so hard to trigger you. They will try so hard to trigger you. They'll send you those long emails saying all sorts of things. They know what your emotional triggers are. They know what your Achilles heels are. They know how to say things that are going to make you want to respond to each and every point. How could you say this about me? How could you say that? That's not true, and this is what's true, and this is the fact, and here's proof, and here's proof, and here's proof, and here's proof. Okay? You don't need to do all of that. You do not need to do all of that. That plays into exactly with it. Now you're down in the mud with them. You just need to say, I'm in receipt of your email. I deny what you're saying. And here's the only thing I need to respond to, which is, I'll see you at 3:00 on Wednesday, or whatever it is that you need to respond to. Those are the types of games that they play. Don't take the bait. In fact, I want you to comment right now, I won't take the bait. That's your mantra for today. I won't take the bait. Right? I want to see the comment below so I know that you're listening. I won't take the bait. So remember, they don't have any sense of self. They don't have a strong sense of self. So what is the one trait that really is the best thing that makes you like so untouchable? Like you're the Dalai Lama against a narcissist? You have a strong sense of self. You know who you are. You are secure. in yourself as a person. You have nothing to prove. That is quite literally the opposite of a narcissist. It is the other end of the spectrum. They have zero sense of self. You have a complete, secure sense of who you are as a person. You feel good about yourself. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You are a good person. You want to help people. You know that giving doesn't take away from yourself, that when other people succeed, it doesn't have anything to do with you. You can champion them, all of the things that they're not. That is really the one trait that completely keeps you out of their games because you're not competing with them. I mean, narcissists want to compete with you, and you're just like, I'm not competing. I'm not part of your game. This is not who I am. That is truly the opposite of what the narcissist is. So let's talk about narcissists, and especially in negotiations. So what's really going on with narcissists in negotiations? Well, the thing is with narcissists is that they have no inner sense of value. They are literally the most insecure people on the planet. I've often said they're like the little hollow Easter bunnies. They're like really pretty, maybe on the outside, but nothing going on the inside. And so they literally have to get all of their value from the external. So they're constantly trying to find external ways to get value. So when you're negotiating with them, if you come in and basically just, start swashbuckling and say, I want this, or I'm walking, or whatever, that's going to be what you're going to get from them. And so if you try that, you're not going to get very far because they're probably going to walk in and want to do that too. In general, when you're dealing with them in a negotiation, I try to start off by just, first of all, saying, I don't like to be in the same room with them if possible. I do generally try to make sure that you do have like a neutral third party mediator if possible, because, you do try to want to have like some sort of a buffer if possible. But if you don't have a neutral third party buffer, that's fine too. But you do want to make sure that you walk in, you're confident, you're strong, because they definitely respect you more if you're confident and you're strong. They are a little bit more intimidated by people who are confident and strong. They definitely respect people of authority more because they're actually very, very insecure people. So if you walk in much more confident, much more strong, that will intimidate them a little bit more. Stick your hand out, shake their hand, use their name, wear your power suit or whatever clothes that, you feel confident in. Definitely you want to do that. Especially if the negotiations are in person. And I definitely recommend that you do that. If you have not gotten my SLAY program, highly recommend that you do that, which stands for strategy, leverage, anticipating, and focus on you. Slay your negotiation. If you haven't checked that out, dealing with a narcissist in a negotiation setting. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, you can never win with a narcissist, but you definitely can. But you have to be very, very strong. You have to be very, very direct when you are dealing with a narcissist, for sure. With all people want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter in a negotiation. But with narcissists, it's even more so. They want to have their ego stroked a lot in a negotiation, a whole lot. You can't go in and start like insulting them for sure. I mean, you might even want to start off by saying, what do you think? Or what's your opinion on this? Or even ask them to go first, get them to give the first offer. I often like the other side to give the first offer, because then you can get a read on where they stand as far as where the negotiations are. It's great if you kind of know what the other side is thinking. Sometimes, you might want to ask for a lot more than what it is that you want. But a lot of times you also want to make sure you kind of throwing the other side off the scent of what it is that you actually really, really want. Because especially with narcissists, if they're vindictive, it has been a lot of emotion involved. They might want to make sure that you don't get what it is that you actually really, really want. So you have to be very, very careful about throwing them off the scent about what it is that you actually want, because they might want to make sure that you don't get that. And then, when you do finally come to a resolution, you do want to make sure, like, oh, this is terrible. I can't believe you got all this. Let them think that they really, really got you, that they really, really put the screws to you. Fine. You kind of have to take your ego out of it. Let them have all the ego to it. That again is fine, because you do want to let them feel like their ego won. Again, a lot of the situation is going to have to be how they look, because to a narcissist, how they look is absolutely everything. So making sure that when they walk away, they get to look like a certain thing, especially if other people are going to know what the results were of that particular negotiation, especially if other people that they care about are going to know what the results are of that particular negotiation, such as employees or neighbors or people that they respect, people that they care about, window dressing, people that they respect, or people of prestige. If, very much how they look to the world, how they look to the community, how they look to people that they care about, very much matters to narcissists more than anything else. So always bearing that in mind and making sure it's easy for them to say yes, bearing that in mind for you to be keeping in consideration when you are thinking about how to get that narcissist to say yes. When you're thinking about that, when you're thinking about strategy, when you're thinking about leverage, remember always, always, always that the best leverage is always thinking in terms of narcissistic supply, always. And you're always thinking of presenting it in terms of a strategy. This is something I teach in the SLAY program. You have to have a strategy and you have to have leverage. And so if they've been making your life miserable, it is because probably they were getting some sort of supply from you when they had a relationship with you. And if they had the supply from you of whatever it was that you were providing to them, whether it was during the relationship, you were their spouse or their business partner or whatever, and they were getting whatever benefit there was from that. And once that relationship breaks down with narcissists, it's very black and white. And so once that relationship breaks down, now you're against them. So for a narcissist, you're either for them or against them. And once you're against them, now you become public enemy number one. And so they're going to trade that form of supply by now getting supply from you in a different way. And that supply that they're going to get from you now is in the form of jerking you around and making you miserable and keeping you engaged that way. And that's why many times the cases don't settle. That's why many people have this myth of like, why can't I get this case to settle? Why can't I get this to ever be done? The reason why is because they've traded a form of supply. And so when you think about strategy, when you think about leverage, you have to remember that you have to think about what's going to be something that's going to mean more to them, as far as potentially exposing them and potentially threatening a narcissistic supply that is going to mean more to them to keep or maintain than the supply that they're getting from jerking you around. And you have to have a strategy around that. And, this is all what I teach in my slave program. So let's talk about how to have a powerful mindset against narcissists, because honestly, when you're negotiating with them, or when you're dealing with them or managing them or trying to deal with any kind of difficult personalities, that's like the most difficult thing. I get a lot of correspondence from people, and some of the most satisfying correspondence that I get from people is when people are like, okay, I won my negotiation, I got the results that I wanted, but the most surprising thing that happened to me is that my fear disappeared. But that's actually the most important thing that happens, because you cannot get the results you want, and you cannot manage difficult people or toxic personalities without that. And that's actually the thing that you have to lead with, because they smell blood in the water. And that's why they know that they can kind of target you and know that they can control you, because they look for people who are empaths. They look for people who are kind of the bleeding hearts, who have some sort of, wounds themselves, who have some sort of, really want to help people, who really feel like I can save you, I can help you. And to them, that doesn't mean, oh, I can help you, I can save you, to them, that means, ooh, sap. To them, that means, I can take advantage of you. You think, oh, they're going to appreciate me. They're going to, wow, this person saved me. They're going to love me for it. They're going to see all that I did for them. And that ain't going to happen. It's going to end up being a black hole. You're going to end up feeling used. You're going to end up feeling abused. It's going to end up being this cycle where you're going to give. They're going to take. And it's going to keep going. And here's like the really kind of thing that's also sort of ironic is, like, a lot of times people are like, I'm afraid to like become strong against the narcissist because I'm afraid of the backlash. I'm afraid of the things that they're going to do to me. I'm afraid of like what's going to happen because they're going to be worse. Well, yeah, they probably will be worse initially, because, you've conditioned them, they've conditioned you, you've kind of conditioned each other in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of times you have a long history with each other, and you've both kind of created a conditioning of each other. I mean, you've both sort of taught each other what you will tolerate or how the relationship is going to go. And there's been some expectations that have been set on both sides as a result. And so creating a powerful mindset means you're also going to have to create some new boundaries, new goals, new way of thinking for yourself as well. So, all right. So number 5, I'm going to kind of work backwards with your secrets here. 5 secrets to having a powerful mindset against narcissists. So that's kind of like my preface to the whole thing here. But let's work backwards with our secrets. So number 5 is start expecting them to behave like narcissists. I know that sounds easy, but it's not all that easy sometimes. I mean, you can still end up in the trap of like, can you believe they did this? I can't believe they did that. Oh my gosh. I mean, I remember having this conversation with a client one time where she had this huge situation with her soon to be ex in the parking lot of the school. And it was like 8 o'clock, 8:30, and she calls me at my office, and she was like, "Can you believe he did this right in front of the students, in front of the teachers? Everybody was there." And I remember saying to her, because she kept saying, "Can you believe he did? Can you believe? Can you believe?" And I remember saying, "Yes, I can, especially after all you've told me about him. What I can't believe is that you can't believe it." She actually started laughing because she was like, "Eh, good point. Fair points." Like, yeah, because like, just, yeah, don't be surprised when they act like themselves, right? They just expect them. There they go. There they are acting like their narky selves. Don't be surprised when they just act like themselves. So that's secret number 5. So now we're going to go to secret number 4. Secret number 4 is to be super specific about what it is that you want. So having a powerful mindset means, what is it that you want? Do you want a certain outcome? Do you want a certain vision? What is the goal of, the negotiation that you want? Is it, a certain parenting plan? If it's a business negotiation, what is the outcome? Sometimes people forget that. It seems so simple, but people often forget. Is it, if you're trying to end a business relationship, even if it's not a negotiation, what would be your perfect outcome? Is it to just go your own separate ways? Do you want to keep the business? Do you want to sell it? Do you want to dissolve it? What is it that you want? Do you want to keep the clients? Do you not? Be super specific. Write it down. Maybe write it down and post it everywhere. What goals do you want for your life, for your business, for your career? Watch my interview with Bob Proctor, by the way, which is amazing. It not only, by the way, changed lives of many people who watched that interview, it changed my own life. It was like one of my favorite interviews that I've absolutely ever done. So definitely go check that out. So that's secret number 2. Be super specific. You are placing orders to the universe. By the way, you're placing orders to the universe even when you say things you don't necessarily want. So, a lot of people say, "I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money." And I wonder why the universe doesn't bring them more money. Come on, be careful with what you say. Your words are very powerful. So if you want more money, be careful about what you say. Okay. So that's secret number 4. Secret number 3 is stay laser focused and put your emotions into it. See yourself in your outcome. Feel it. Emotion plus motion equals your outcome. Like, really, really feel it. The movie The Secret, they were talking about like feeling yourself in the car, like you feel your hands on the steering wheel, you feel the hair, the wind in your hair, like really feel it. You have to really feel like what it's like. And like, you can't just like write it down on a piece of paper. You got to really, really feel the emotion of what it is that you want, because that vibrational energy is super, super important. Okay, so if you're doing it, give me an "I'm doing it" in the comments right now. I'm doing it. I feel the power. I got the emotion. All right, number 2, watch your words. No weak language. No, "I'm trying, I'm hoping, I might, maybe, I'm sorry." None of that. No weak language, people. No, I'm doing, I am Yoda. We're Yoda here. Remember Yoda? Do or do not. There is no try. Yes, love Yoda. All right. And secret number 1. Secret number 1. This is my own little secret. This is for me as well as for you. I got to do this myself too. Number 1 for myself is I don't leave my thoughts unsupervised. At least for me, my thoughts cannot be left unsupervised. I don't know about you, but I have to, like, if I'm, walking the dog or, doing things where my thoughts are left to their own devices, they don't usually go into the good neighborhoods. They usually end up in the bad neighborhoods. So I usually end up listening to podcasts, books, Audible books, things that will fill my head with the things that I want. So, control your input. That helps to control your output. So that's what I do. Don't leave your thoughts unsupervised. That is secret number one to having a super powerful mindset.